This is Dr. Elliot Realsteen, and I have a PhD in accounting, communications, and most importantly, a PhD in street. National debt is a very important issue and one of the most prominent existential problems amongst debtor nations in the world. The problem that debt creates is so immense that it is thrown around like a hot potato by politicians, pundits, and critics during campaign seasons. This issue resonates with all voters because they do not want to live with debt in their personal lives. Therefore, they would not want to transfer this reality on a grander scale to the country they live in, and have it burden everyone in the country, including their young loved ones. However, have you noticed that the attacks on politicians and policymakers for increasing national debt have attenuated over the years? The problems are the same. In fact, they are getting worse, yet the accountability of those who exacerbate this problem becomes less and less pronounced. Why is that? Now, I am typically not inclined to conspiracy theories, but on this issue I will indulge, as I believe that national debt and fiat currency could possibly be the greatest ever ruse pulled by government over the people. In North America especially, elections oftentimes are won by a candidate pointing a finger at an opponent or incumbent and emphasizing that person or party's record on increasing the national debt, which then is usually followed by the typical "think of the children" line. This works as it resonates with the voting populace. But what happens when these whistleblowers then seize control? Well, they pile on the debt, the inflation, and the debasement of the currency through money printing themselves as well. They don't care about national debt, nor does anyone else in the political class. It is a real problem that has been reduced to a political football that is passed from party to party over election cycles. At first, I chalked this vacillation up to politicians being politicians and doing whatever is necessary to get elected, but when investigating the issue a little bit further, it becomes clear that the national debt issue runs much deeper than simply political talking points and hypocrisy. As it stands, there are only 5 countries in the entire world that are debt-free. That's right, only 5. Brunei, the British Virgin Islands, Macau, Liechtenstein, and Palau. Quite the murderer's row of prominent countries, if I may say so myself. Every country in the world is in debt. All of them. If national debt is such an existential crisis, then why is every country so unwilling to keep its own debt under control? They want you to think that it is simply due to incompetence, which is definitely a factor, but it is due to the fact that national debt does not truly matter to them. The first red flag that must be thrown up is that national debt is measured in fiat paper currency, which for those unaware is essentially useless and only contains the value that we, the consumer, gives it. And with the carte blanche some private institutions have to print as much of it as they want out of thin air, a scenario in which these dollars lose 90% of their value overnight is possible. So no matter how high debt becomes, if it is measured in fiat currency, a country can, in theory, debase the value of its currency, set the printing presses on turbo, and inflate their way out of debt. Not smart, but in the paper money world, it is unfortunately a possible reality. Secondly, most countries print their paper money into oblivion and increase national debt, but concomitantly pile up their own gold reserves. oftentimes using inflated, debased paper money to purchase gold and store it away in their reserves. In fact, since 2010, central banks have gone from significant net sellers of gold to giant net purchasers. Why is this? Is it possible they know something we don't? After all, I recall many advertisements encouraging people to sell their old scrap gold for cash to the government, who were more than willing participants in this paper for gold exchange with its own people. This behavior was suspect, and when individuals tried to get answers for what was going on in these transactions and amongst these bodies, they were met with dead ends and laughter.
Well, speculator or not, you've been a long-time gold bull, and if your fiat currencies are doomed and gold is the only real money, then the U.S. is sitting pretty, aren't we? Because we've got the largest gold reserves in the world, more than 8,000 tons.
Well, you know, I don't know the last time Fort Knox was audited, so the question is, are those numbers real?
Peter, you did just say that. Do you think that really the gold isn't there?
Governments in countries all over the world, except for 5, increase their national debt daily while accumulating gold and precious metals. Greece, which is a country riddled with debt and even had to be bailed out by the IMF multiple times and continues to get aid, has seen their gold reserves increase year after year to where they have 112.87 tons of gold in reserve. And including scrap gold, it is more than 117 tons. When Greece was bailed out, they were not made to liquidate their gold reserves to help with payment. It was not even suggested. In 2013, when Cyprus was bailed out, it was written into the agreement that they liquidate some of their gold reserves, but in the end, they did not either. Knowing that central banks are big net purchasers of gold, why then were these countries not made to liquidate their gold reserves when they were on the brink of default? Have there been shadow agreements between countries to not touch each other's gold reserves, the real world currency? All countries pile on debt, yet concurrently keep stacking up gold in their reserves. Is it just a coincidence, or is something being hidden? Are the leaders in governments all over the world simply creating the appearance of value with fiat currency and spreading this idea to the masses in order to have them fight over this worthless paper, while the governments of the world collect and hoard gold and precious metals because they know that these metals have real and inexorable value, unlike paper? Governments know that paying off $21 trillion in debt can literally be done overnight via printing presses and electronic transfers. And if they have 8,000 tons of gold in reserve, they can easily blow up their fiat currency and still be opulent at the top levels of their society. Inflate the currency, pay off all fiat debts, and start over with a gold and precious metal-based economy in which the world governments have hegemony of the world's gold reserves while private citizens have a minuscule amount and thus become automatically subservient to them. This type of situation is a very real possibility of how countries will pay off their debts in the future, as most are not even close to being on track to paying them off at their current rate, and under normal circumstances probably never will. Wealth is power, and the crap you have in your wallet and bank account is just money, and it only provides the illusion of wealth. The governments and institutions who print and license the money that is in your account know this to be true. This is why they accumulate gold while haphazardly build up paper debt. Actions speak louder than words, and their actions are telling you as clear as day where the emphasis of your wealth and net worth should really be. People collect and save paper. Countries and governments collect and save gold. Enough said.